welcome Sebastian Faulks.
Good evening. Thank you for both those very kind introductions. And thank you to all of you for coming along on this lovely day when I'm sure you've got better things to be doing, really. The reason that this is a novel and not a collection of stories is basically because I say so, and because I designed it in that way. There are also some circumstantial connections between the 5 parts of this book. There's a character who comes at the beginning and reappears in the last section. There is a house which comes and goes. There are 2 houses that come and go. And I'm interested in the way that houses long outlive us. And we think that, you know, the house we were born and brought up in was there for that purpose, really, to bring us up as children, and when we need it, it'll sort of disappear, having served its usefulness. It's rather humbling, I find, to go back to the place where I was born and brought up and find that I was a complete irrelevance, and all the buildings are still there, and other people, and other lives, and other families have passed through them, and so on. And there are also 1 or 2 objects which recur, which have been owned by people 50 or 100 years apart. But what the book is really about is whether we, as individuals, and this actually comes very close to what the vicar was saying in his introduction, whether we really can live alone, and perhaps more than that, whether we are really properly separated from one another. And my interest in this is partly philosophical, partly religious, though I'm not a particularly religious person, and we'll come back to religion in a minute. But it's also scientific. I read and have read a lot of psychology and books about neuroscience, which is always rather difficult for me as someone who failed chemistry O-level. But in a way, in science, the big ideas are the easiest things to grasp. It's at molecular level where if you're a completely nitwit like me, it's very, very hard to understand what's going on. But the big holy grail at the moment of neuroscience is to find what they call the neural substrates of human consciousness. And by that they mean the little bits of matter, a cell, that actually give us this extraordinary sense of being a self and our self-awareness, which tragically for us includes our knowledge that we will die. No other animal, no other creature lives its whole life as a cosmic joke, knowing that it's going to end one day quite soon. And these are problems that we all wrestle with in different ways. And in this book, in the middle section, which is set in the future, an Italian neuroscientist, a woman called Elena, discovers with her co-worker the secret of what makes us human. It has to be set in the future because they need a super powerful scanner. And this super powerful scanner, by a series of accidents, there's a patient in there who has a rod lodged in his brain. And this rod is touching on the very area where this secret of human superiority lies. And they scan and rescan and rescan. And what they find is a little duct or a little join pipe between 2 previously existent faculties. And I did write out huge reams of pseudo-scientific stuff about this, but in the end I boiled it down to a page and a half because I didn't want to bore the pants off the readers. But I did show it to professors of neuroscience, one psychological, one more technical. And they helped me fine-tune it a little bit. But what they liked about it, I think, well, I know because they said, was the idea that if and when we do discover this holy grail, what are these little bits of matter in the brain that make us self-aware, it may well be a bit of an anticlimax. In my version, it is an anticlimax. Elena describes it as it was as though France and England, two great places, had lain side by side for a long time until someone invented the boat. And then this boat, which is this new little bit of matter, joins the 2 up. But in a sense, so what? It doesn't, as she puts it, take away the aching of the heart. And even as she is being given lots of honours and doctorates and lectures and so on, she believes that she has solved forever what makes us individual and what makes us human. But it doesn't make her happy. And that's, of course, another thing that we all wrestle with. And people have interviewed me and say, well, of course, this is really a book about connection, isn't it? Or this is a book about hope, isn't it? Or isn't this really a book about how you can love two people at once? Or this is a book about remaking yourself. Or this is a book about our inability to remake ourselves. And it is about all of these things and many other things. So what I've concluded, and I've learned a bit about it over the last month, what I've concluded is that this is a book that people are able to inhabit and make up their own minds a lot about.
You hear the word, not often, galactic, and in fact there are more planets and stars than there are grains of sand and a beach. In terms of Voyager 1, which has been going for 16 years, is now going outside of our interplanetary system. Do you think that people should be aware of that, or do you think it's too awesome for some people in terms of self-awareness?
Well, that's definitely the hardest question I've ever been asked. 25 years on the road. But I mean, I think the fact of the matter is that there are some questions which my brain, and I think most people's brains, just stall at contemplating. And I find the intergalactic vastness, the interminability of the cosmos, one of those things, and I just can't get my brain around it. I find it easier to look in than look out, but of course you do get exactly the same problem when you look inward, and that's exactly the problem the neuroscientist has in this book. Because even when she's cracked it, she's still not really cracked it. And when I've made attempts to understand the kind of things that you've just been describing, I simply realise that my brain isn't capable of really comprehending. I mean, I can understand the words of the sentence, but I can't really sink deep down. It doesn't alter the way I live. And until humans can somehow enlarge their brains further, they're not really going to be able to comprehend the implications of all these things. But this brings me to another point, which is something else of the hobby horse of mine, which is the quite unnecessary degree to which humans are super evolved. I mean, we are the result, if Darwin's theory of natural selection is correct, which I assume it to be. I mean, not just of that gradual process of mutation and selection, but of a freak saltational mutation. Because there is really no need for us to be so much cleverer than our competitors. I mean, we probably did kill the Neanderthals, but we could have outfought, outhunted and outfed our primate rivals without writing all of Mozart's symphonies. There was a sort of exponential evolutionary change, and I think we are struggling terribly to deal with that, because in evolutionary terms it's a very recent event, and that's why 1 in 100 human beings is mentally unwell, because these changes are not properly wired in yet. And we are very unstable creatures. That was a bit of a meandering, trying to get away from the fact that I don't understand anything about space at all. But thank you for the question. But I said I'd come back to religion, and I think there's one section of this book which concerns a character called Jeanne, who is a sort of a French servant, housekeeper, illiterate woman in the early 19th century. And to her, the fact that she can't understand any of these questions we're all bashing our head against is not a problem, because it's not for her to understand. She doesn't understand why an apple drops from a tree. And one of the boy she looks after tells her once that the movement of the tides of the sea is influenced by the moon. To her, this is completely absurd, as it is to me, actually. But if she were to phrase this question to herself, she would simply say, well, of course I don't understand. It's not my job to understand. It's God's job to understand. My only job is to be a good person and submit myself to the will of God and to do my job. And of course, you know, that is, I dare say, one reason why there are still millions and millions and millions of people worldwide who, whatever science says, cling to simple religion. Yeah, doing the voices, doing other writers. No, I think once my mother-in-law has a great phrase, once funny, twice silly, 3 times a smack. There is no area of human experience for which that is not applicable. And I feel I got away with it with James Bond, but you never say never. Well, it sounds like James Bond. Yeah. Sometimes my whole life seems like a dream. Occasionally I think that someone else has lived it for me. The events, and the sensations, the stories, and the things that make me what I am in the eyes of other people. The list of facts that make my life. They could be mine. They might be yours. I'm an actor playing a part I've never mastered. I've stood here, back to the bar window, beer in glass, slight jet lag, old leather jacket, maybe 1,000 times before, and it never adds up. So when eventually my hour comes and I go down in that darkness, into the blackness of the black painted wings, there'll be no need to mourn me or